the conversation here is not just about sufficiency, which is how most people view nutrition. It's like, I personally want to move towards optimal. So what's optimal? So we can take a little bit of omega-3, might help us not get deficient and have a problem, but what's optimal? The research says that optimal is 2 grams a day. And if you're taking 2 grams a day, it will reduce all-cause mortality by about 40%.
What?
That's huge. That's good. So why would you not kind of take an omega-3?
Hi, I'm Jaymie.
And I'm Stacey.
And this is the Body Smart Podcast.
And today's guest is Ben Coomber, who is a multi-award-winning nutritionist and also CEO of Awesome Supplements, which is a well-known, in our circles anyway, British supplement brand and really evidence-based, which is key. That's why we've got you on today to help us cut the BS on all the things people might have heard about supplements, what they should be taking, what they shouldn't be taking. But also, Ben's been a coach. Ben gets it. He's a real life person with 2 kids and he's trying to figure out this health thing himself. So we're definitely interested to hear how you've got everything in balance yourself. But what I want to start with is this word that's on your top, awesome. It's like your thing.
Yes.
But what does awesome mean to you?
So for me, it's an energy. So the word means something to me. And if someone was to observe it, hopefully it can mean something for them. So awesome for me means that I'm able to turn up to my life, all aspects of my life, with energy, with vitality, with passion, and I just sort of feel awesome. Now that's subjective to me, but I want it to be equally as subjective to other people. So through my work, I try and inspire people to be an awesome human, and they get to create what that is, but there's that kind of overarching kind of word that is awesome, and if they just have it, then it's almost something that they might be working towards. I'm trying to be more awesome or an awesome human. So yeah, it's kind of, for me, it's like an energy and a set of values, and where someone wants to be with their health, with their life, and their future.
So it's almost like that guiding light of your vision and your purpose.
Yeah.
So would you say people could choose their own word?
They could. I suppose through my work, that is just that kind of anchor point. Whatever word means something to people. There's so many different like exercises that you can do to kind of align like where your values are, where your passions are, all of that kind of stuff. And as long as it leads you to a more positive place, then like absolutely brilliant. Like do it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What does that mean for you? So awesome to you then, feeling awesome. Like what does that even look like?
So energetically, like my mood is in a good place, which can be challenging because there's things that feed into your mood, like your nutrient status, your sleep, like environmental stressors, electronic stressors, all that kind of stuff. And then physically performing well, so I can move well, I feel strong. Like if I went into the gym or went for a run, like I feel good. That my body feels physiologically functional, so I'm able to sleep well, I'm able to regulate my mood well, my energy well, all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's kind of an amalgamation of physiology, psychology, and then purposefulness. So when I talk about my concept around the awesome human, they're the 3 pillars. It's physiological optimization, psychological optimization, and purposefulness in life.
Yeah. I think that's a really good anchor for someone to figure out what they're after, because we've talked a lot about helping people find clarity on what they're even trying to achieve, because often people come to us and say, I want to lose weight. But actually what they want to do is be more awesome, or whatever that word is for them. And lose weight is maybe in one corner of that triangle, but there isn't that much clarity on the other things. So how would you help somebody figure that out?
I think a good starting point is blocking out the noise. We live in a very noisy world of opinions. We're all following cool people on social media and we get inspired by them, and we get an amalgamation of other people's goals or things that they do into like our goal structure. So I think one of the reasons I've been very good at this is I was fortunate enough, and you might call it fortune, and in reflection I now call it fortune, is when I left school when I was a kid, I was on my own. So as an 18-year-old guy, I didn't have the influence of other friends like, come to uni, do this, why are you doing that, fashion. Like I had none of that. I was literally an open book. My parents lived abroad and I went to military boarding school. So I literally finished school and I was in a house like by myself, and it was like, right, shit, better grow up and like do life. And because I didn't have any external influences, I then sort of started to say, well, I want to do this. And there was no noise. So I was able to navigate it, and then it just kept kind of going and going and going. But now when we think about our goals, like we'll sit down with clients and a client will be like, oh, I've got X goal. And when you talk about it under the surface, that is the surface level goal. Don't get me wrong, it's within the goal structure. It's one of the goals. But actually they want to be happier. They want to be more fulfilled. They want to be less stressed. They want to have more, passionate experiences in their life. It's so much more than wanting to lose weight. So I think silence and space. So sometimes I'll even say to a client, like, what if you didn't go on social media for a month? What if you didn't watch Netflix for a month? What if you didn't do those things that are taking up your time and you gave yourself the space, the clarity you need to actually figure things out and explore things and try things without external influences and start to become a lot more internal? Because we all know the power of a internal why rather than an external why, which is what a lot of people are getting. So I think that's a really good starting point, because otherwise we'll set goals, but then we'll go on social media or we'll see what our mate's doing. It's like, oh, that's quite cool. Or, especially with the gym, like you start following a gym program and then you sit down and 2 weeks later, they're doing 70% of your gym program and 30% of stuff that they've seen online or their CrossFit mates doing or whatever, because they're really fit and it looks really cool. So I think creating that space is really important, because you can spend time being more internal, and that won't be well practiced by a lot of people, but you have to start to practice it.
When you said spend a month without going on social media, I was like, a month? I don't think most people would even, like, the idea of that, they'd be like, well, that's just crazy, which shows just how messed up we've all become with our relationships with our phones. Yeah. But if somebody wanted to start small and they were like, I'm a little bit addicted to my phone, I'll put my hands up, how could they start to connect to that inner voice a bit more, do you think?
I think you're only going to be able to do that by having periods of space, silence. Within the process of change, a number one blocking factor for a lot of people is a lack of time. So if we removed all those things that are taking up our time, which are quite often noisy activities, social media use, TV use, etc., you're inadvertently fixing that problem as well. So we're creating space and clarity, and we're creating time. And for a lot of people, the reason why they won't do that is it will feel uncomfortable, because their routine is, when they sit having a poo, they whip open their phone, they have a look at Facebook, 10 minutes is gone, they've left 10 minutes of their day. So it's like, right, let's make a commitment, delete Facebook off your phone for a week. Like, do these things for a week and just see what happens, lean into that discomfort. And that's the problem with change. It's uncomfortable. Yeah. But you've got to start to lean into it. It's the only way to explore it. It's the only way to challenge what you currently believe, what you're currently doing, how you currently feel. And that is all the uncomfortable process of change.
Yeah. It's the phone has very much become like the adult dummy or the adult pacifier. You know what I mean? Like, it's in that case, isn't it? Like, anytime we even feel like an ounce of boredom, it's like, oh, you get your phone out.
It's dopamine.
Yeah. So just people are just chasing that all the time. Like, there's no conversations and lines to get a coffee anymore, or just anywhere. It's just like phone, head down. And it's like it's just become like a crutch in a lot of ways for people to just not be bored anymore.
That's why everything we're talking about today is a big holistic picture, because when I use my phone the most, I'm tired. And I'm using my phone because I want some kind of quick experience. I want to like almost feel something. Whereas if I'm well rested, like I've got a good routine, I've got good habits, I don't go on my phone that much because I'm very focused on like me and my goals and work and family and all the rest of it. And that's why it's very hard to talk about these things in isolation, because if I said to someone, don't do that behavior, but that behavior is a crutch for something else in their lifestyle, which is lack of sleep, lack of good nutrition, etc., then it's going to be really difficult to do it, because this behavioral cycle is not being closed by other healthy behaviors. So that's why I like creating space and time and leaning into it, because you have to kind of approach it and deal with those things and create solutions for yourself.
Yeah, 100%. I think even just like going for a walk without your phone can be like a great first step sometimes. Just actually give yourself the time instead of going like, oh, I've got to listen to a podcast, or I've got to do this, or I've got to do something else. Probably the people who are listening now on a walk.
Do I turn it off or not? That's really good.
Yeah. But like sometimes it is just about giving yourself that space to just be with yourself. Yeah. I mean, I've definitely been there. I've had it like, right, I'll go and have my lunch, and while I'm having lunch, I'll listen to a podcast or I'll watch a YouTube video, because I'll just learn more in that time. And I just found the more I just kept doing that and just push. Even when I got to the end of the day, I was like exhausted. Like Steph had come home from work, And like she'd want to talk, and I just had nothing left because I've just 100 mile an hour, and then just those little breaks throughout the day, a little bit of time to just think and digest the day, just even made the evening just a little bit more peaceful and enjoyable. Never mind trying to get like clear on like what your actual values are and what you what you actually want to move towards.
Yeah. So one of the things I've been trying to do over this last year is be intentional about all my behaviours. And the problem with social media is it's unintentional in most aspects of it and how most people use it. So when I think about learning, I used to listen to like 6 different podcasts a week or whatever, 6 hours committed to that. And it's like, well, what am I actually struggling with right now in my life? Because you've got to have time to process this information and implement this information. So if I listen to 6 podcasts, and I know some people that almost like post their podcast listens on their Instagram story, like, you know, almost like virtue signaling, this is all the podcasts I've listened to today. It's like, there's no way you've got time to process all that information, maybe do some extra research, implement it into your lifestyle and be a better person. And I know for me, if I listen to like 2 podcasts a week, that's probably enough for me to actually go, right, I'm going to go away and use that and absorb that. So intentionality, I think, is really important, like with your phone use, with why you do your fitness, like what you eat, why you move, what is the intention behind the behavior, and are you getting the outcome that you want? Because if you're doing things and not getting an outcome that you want, you have to question the behavior, because we're almost losing life to that experience. And you'll look back 5 years and go, God, I did all of that stuff with no intentionality, and now I'm here, and now I'm pissed off.
Yeah. And no further forwards than, well, not towards what I actually care about anyway. Maybe over there. You're over there all the way along, but it's not where you wanted to be. One of the things that I find really interesting is the concept of seasons. We talked about it earlier before the cameras came on, but also I know you've had your own kind of health journey in the last couple of years. How did you reconcile this concept of awesome with like maybe not being able to feel awesome all the time, or some bits of your life were awesome and then other bits really were not? How did you get over that or like deal with that?
Yeah, so I wrote a chapter on this in my book, How to Live an Awesome Life, where I said I felt an imposter writing the actual book, because I'm like, right now I'm like a 6 out of 10. But when I looked at all of my life, there's many areas of my life that I was like a 8, 9, 10 out of 10. And what I was not doing is really just being kind to myself, that I am human and things happen and we have to just deal with them. And I wasn't giving myself the space to do that. And in a lot of my behaviors in my past, especially when you're a coach, you kind of put yourself on a pedestal in a way. And a lot of people look up to you as a coach because they're like, hey, coach, I'm looking to you for advice on how to be really healthy and perform really well. And I wasn't doing that. I kind of felt bad and I was giving myself a hard time because, oh, if I can't do it, how can I advise people? I'm like, bad things happen to good people. You can eat really well and have cancer at 40. Like, that happens. But that doesn't mean we don't try and put our best foot forward and try and be healthy and try and have these behaviors, because we're still stacking the odds in our favor. So it's very difficult, but through a lot of like coaching, I've had a lot of coaching over the last 2 to 3 years. I've had a mindset coach, kind of like an energetic and spiritual coach, sort of a strategic kind of business coach, and all of those sort of things have helped me kind of be a lot kinder to myself, slow down, be more intentional, be more focused, consider the wider picture and the impact all these things have on my life. And it's been life-changing. Like, you know, anyone that might have met me 3 years ago to who I am today, like completely different. Like, you know, we were talking about living life at 1,000 miles an hour earlier on.
Yep.
Like 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago, I was 100 miles an hour, you know, working a lot, traveling the world. And don't get me wrong, I still had a lot of fun, a lot of adventure. I've worked abroad, done all sorts of stuff. But my schedule was always packed, and it broke my body. Like, even though I was healthy, even though I was going to the gym, even though I was eating well all the time, even though I was getting pretty good sleep, there's only so much the body can handle. And I think a lot of people are walking towards many health crises because we all do just too much and our body's under a lot of pressure. And I think a lot of people do need a reset, a slow down and go, let me just see where I want to be in all of this.
What was the catalyst for change for yourself then?
Getting really ill.
Yeah.
Like, so I had long COVID, kind of, it's basically a kind of a chronic fatigue-based condition. And that meant I had depersonalization, so it doesn't feel like you're living in your body. chronic depression, like don't want to get out of bed, can't move, can't think straight, you've got a constant migraine, you've got pain all over your body, like you just want to lie in bed like all day. And it's at that point, as a guy that is fit and healthy, or was perceived to be, that you're like, wow, like I've got to change. And what I was doing to try and get out of my situation wasn't working. So for me, I just had to hold a big mirror up to my life and go, perhaps you need to change on a way deeper a level than even you're even considering. And I did. And I do personally believe, from my experience, and there seems to be a lot of data on this as well, that the mind plays a huge role in physiological disease states as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
100%.
yeah, when I talk to people that are still suffering from, various things, I'm like, are you doing the work on yourself, on the mind, on your soul, like all the deep stuff? And they never are.
Can you share a little bit of, you don't have to go into full depth, but like what that might look like? Because when people hear that, they're like, what, meditate? Or like, what do you mean?
Yeah, I suppose that's complicated. So for me, it all came down initially to like behaviors. So everything that I did initially was a behavioral program that I'd instilled in my body and mind, that if I do more, I will be more successful. If I do more, I will be more satisfied. If I do more, I will earn more money. If I do more, I will experience life more. And that's true to an extent, but there's a breaking point. And I unfortunately reached breaking point. So I had to kind of look at that and go, right, why am I doing this? Because if I got healthy quickly, I would have gone back to all those behaviors and would have been back to square one again. So for me, that looked like really slowing down, because what I'd done in becoming a fast-paced, busy entrepreneur is I'd programmed my central nervous system to be on 24/7. So I was just revving all the time, and I can feel it now. I can feel any slight rev in my central nervous system. Like my heart rate, my resting heart rate can go from 44 to 50, and I can feel it. That's how much time I've spent like looking inwards at how my body is working. So that kind of looked like, in kind of my journey of really paying attention to what deep physiological function felt and looked like for me, not just surface level, like I feel hot or I feel stressed. It's like, what does that feel like deep within? And I would say most people can't really feel what that's like, because we don't spend time in it. We're not listening. We're not feeling that. So there was a lot of meditation, a lot of acupuncture, a lot of breath work. Man, breath work's good. Like once you really get into breath work and experience like really good guided practitioners. Like I've done some incredible sessions where released demons, mad things have happened. I've been vibrating on the floor and stuff. So breath work, hot and cold therapy, and I don't think I would be where I am without, I've met this amazing woman called Britta, and probably had like 12, 13 sessions with her. And I would describe her as kind of like an energy healer, like someone that works deep on, energy, spirit, soul, all of that kind of stuff. And every time I have a session with her, I'm just like, wow, the body is so cool. The body is, there's so much going on that we don't even like. And yeah, so that's been cool. So that's kind of what it's looked like. And that's, I suppose, an insight in some of the practical things I've been doing to try and sort of get to a really calm, state, but still live a life that I want to, with intentionality, where I'm trying to push my business forward. I'm trying to push my fitness forward. And to be honest, being intentional has helped all of that, because you get rid of all the noise. So you're probably still getting the same volume of outcome, if not greater, but you've removed all of the things that either weren't serving you or are kind of a waste of time. And yeah, I'm still achieving lots with doing less and with a lot more intentionality, and I'm a shitload calmer.
Sounds like a good outcome.
Do you think that's because I go back and forth with this sometimes when I speak to like younger entrepreneurs or business owners, and obviously like my own journey of like going through that in the beginning, it was like excruciatingly painful in every way, and you just keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, and it feels like you almost have to do that to get some sort of like traction and take off. And like now, if I were to do it again, well, I have like more of the confidence that I could do it. I have the skill set that I feel like I could do it, and you could go into it and be a lot more calm around stuff that maybe felt a lot more frantic in the beginning. So like, do you feel like that going through that though now has give you that baseline to have that confidence to have a more calm work-life balance and to be more intentional and to be able to focus on these things?
Yeah, I think our hardest life lessons are usually through pain and adversity. And it's like, how many of us have really wise, wicked grandparents? And they're like, you don't want to be doing too much of that, and don't talk to these people, and do this. And I saw a great post on Twitter today, and it said, "Dear grandparents, getting up at 6 a.m. is really cool. Tending to your garden's awesome. Walking lots and being to bed by 9:30 p.m. is really cool. Thank you very much. Wish I'd listened to your advice 10 years ago." And, you know, that person's obviously talking from a perspective. They were probably an entrepreneur. They've been living a really busy life. They've been going at it too hard, and they've hit this realization that a huge amount of pleasure in life is by going a little bit slower, being in nature more, prioritizing sleep, being intentional. And I thought that was really cool. But to kind of reframe what you said, I think it's a poison chalice of fitness, because fitness, you get rewarded by doing more. And
sometimes.
Sometimes for most people. So most people will get into fitness and they'll start doing like 3-4 sessions a week, and then they'll go, I might just try to do 5 sessions a week, and then you'll probably generally get a good outcome. But as soon as you push a bit harder, don't get me wrong, you're then starting to kind of redline a bit too much. Like, you know, your body's not able to recover. All of those things exist. But I would say for general pop, the more you do, and that was definitely the case when I was a young guy, the more I did, the more I got out of it. But as I got older, my recovery wouldn't support that volume. I wasn't getting the return, but I wasn't listening, because the old me got that kind of benefit. So I kept going. And not in every area of your life, if you do more, you get more out of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
There's a rate of limiting return, right? And the trouble is us navigating where that ideal point is and have the confidence to go,
yeah,
I need to be there rather than over here, because that is too much.
I feel like you only get to that point though through practice, through going through it. So just like with fitness, in the beginning, I was 100 mile an hour, 100 mile an hour, 100 mile an hour, and then I'd get sick. So I'd just like tax my nervous system to the point where I'd get sick. Now I can go, I can almost feel like, I'm pushing too much. I can feel I might get myself a bit ill. Won't train, or I'll just do walks instead. Prioritize sleep, don't get sick, balance the books back out. But before I've been able to get to that point, it was that side of, am I just being a little bitch? Like, am I just going, I'm a bit tired, I shouldn't train? And sometimes you should go and train, you know what I mean? You are just buying into them excuses. And other times you are pushing it too much. And it's that fine line, I think, for a lot of people. It's like, am I being lazy, or should I actually rest? And it's like, it's a fine line. I think it takes a lot of practice for you to get to that point. And that's in fitness, but I think it's like there is crossover to business as well. Yeah.
That's why I'm a fan of sleep tech. Like, I got this Oura Ring like 2 years ago, and when I was ill, I really struggled to know like where I was at, because I had so many symptoms going on. I'm like, okay, is this because I haven't slept well, or is it because of something else? And now, having a bit of sleep tech, I'm like, oh, cool. I now have really good physiological insight into where my body is. And that is saying, because when I'm 50-50, I'm like questioning it. Like, should I train today or shouldn't I? And the Oura Ring might go, no, you should rest today, bro. Like, you know, chill.
Yeah.
I'm like, cool, I will do exactly that. And I think that's the power of, you know, technology and what it can give us insight into now with our physiology.
It's that kind of backup of, no, you probably knew that was what you maybe should have done, but you wanted something to reaffirm that you weren't being lazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll wake up, I've only had 6 hours sleep, I'm quite tired, but physiologically I'm very well recovered. And the Oura Ring would be like, you've not had much sleep, but actually
You're good.
You're good to go. Like, you can do whatever you want today. And I'm like, cool, actually, you know, I'd like to go and train, so we'll go and train.
Yeah, like that. So we were talking earlier about, you know, having different seasons of life and knowing when you can be awesome at it, and other times you need to accept things are going to happen. But I think a lot of things our clients and maybe our listeners struggle with is it's not even just seasons, it's like different silos in their life. So they can be like, I am being awesome at being a mum. I am being awesome at work, but I cannot at the same time be awesome at looking after my health. So how would you even tackle that? Because you've also become a dad fairly recently. We're going through health struggles, trying to manage your health. Like, how did you bring the awesome to everything?
It was probably easier for me because I became a dad right at the start of the pandemic. They happened within a week. So there's lots of things that closed off in your life, like social life and that kind of stuff. I think the struggle with these transitions in life is we will hold on to bits of our identity for too long. So if you're a real socialite and then you became a parent, that goes away very quickly. So you try and gravitate back towards that, but you can't juggle working a full-time job, looking after a kid and having a full social life. Like, it just doesn't happen. So there has to be hopefully this period of fast acceptance where it's like, cool, well, I can't do that anymore, but what can I do, and will that kind of make me happy? And I'm a big fan of projecting into the future. So before I became a parent, I talked to other parents and I was like, let me know how it changes your life. Like, give me insight, like what can I expect? And then you can then have the right kind of expectations. And this is a big thing. There's an amazing guy called Mo Gaudat, and he's written many books on like happiness. And a big thing that he says, he has this formula for happiness, which is expectation versus, it's basically expectation versus like reality. And whatever expectation we have, if reality doesn't meet it, we will be unhappy. Mm-hmm. So if we can say, right, well, when I become a parent, or when this situation happens in my life, which is coming, I expect this. Oh, actually, it's reality. Cool. I'm now happy. But the problem is we're always expecting different things. It's like waking up in the morning and like, I expect X, Y, and Z to happen, and it doesn't. You get to the end of the day and you're like, you're unhappy. Where if we can wake up in the morning and be like, cool, well, I've had a good breakfast. I'm alive. I'm about to go to work. I want this to happen. If it doesn't, no big deal. And I'm going to try and do this. Either way, I'm going to put my best foot forward and have a wicked day. Chances are you'll come home a lot happier rather than having high expectations for the day. So I forgot what your original question was, but that's where we're at.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess it does answer the question in a way, because it's setting those expectations for yourself. You know, it is difficult to be on top of your game in every facet of your life. Like, to be outperforming at work and be a really present parent and be on top of your fitness. You know, this is probably part of the problem with social media, though. The people who are supposedly managing that put it all out there for everybody to see how great they are at doing all these things. And then we mortals see it and think, well, I'm just about scraping by in most of these areas. And I don't, you know, how many people I've spoken to clients-wise who are like, I literally have nothing left to give to myself at the end of trying to be awesome at those things. Yeah. Like, how am I supposed to also plan my food, or like go to the gym, or sit down for 10 minutes and do my journal? Like, that's too much for them. So it's having that expectation management, I suppose, that maybe it's not realistic to be at 10 out of 10 on everything at once.
Yeah, it's not. When I was younger, it was okay. I have very high standards for what I want in life, who I want to be. And when I got ill, and then when I became a parent, and then other stuff in life happens, your standards have to drop a little bit, because you just physically are not able to do that with time, environment. I can have all the best intentions to get a great night's sleep, but my 2 children will determine whether I get a great night's sleep or not. So I have to have expectations in alignment with that. And if I wake up in the morning being a bit tired, a lot of it is just reframing how you approach it. Like, I used to wake up in the morning and be like, oh, you know, I've not slept again. Like, now I'm not going to have a good day. I'm not going to be able to train. It's like, actually, and this is, I can't remember where I learned it from. It's like, I woke up in the morning and I'm tired today, and my 2-year-old had me up for an hour in the night. It was a real blessing to be able to spend an extra hour with them in the middle of the night. I was able to bond and take care of them.
You're a bigger person than me.
And that, I'm not saying that's easy to do.
Yeah.
But how much better does it make you feel about that situation, rather than being like angry at the outcome? Like, I expected to have a good night's sleep. I didn't. Now I feel like crap. Now I'm going to have a bad day. I'm like pre-programming the next 16 hours of my life. Whereas I had a bad night's sleep, but I did get to spend a beautiful hour with my crying baby, and I was able to calm her down, spend time with her, get her back to bed. Yeah, I didn't get a great night's sleep tonight. I'm going to make the best of my day, try and get a good night's sleep tonight.
It's that power of the mind, like you said earlier, isn't it?
It's just how we frame everything.
Yeah.
And our experience of life is ultimately the stories we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
But it comes down to beliefs, doesn't it? Whether you believe you can or can't, you're going to be right 100% of the time. So, you know, it is putting those things in place. I think the hardship that I have with this sometimes is these women or people who are who are ever trying to achieve this next goal, it's just very easy to say though, okay, I've got an awesome family and I've got an awesome career. My health isn't awesome, but I want it to be. But I haven't got the time. And then if you start to tell yourself you haven't got the time, that can just become a repeated belief that you have, and that can almost stop action as well. Instead of sometimes it's just being, not necessarily saying it needs to be 10 out of 10, but like maybe just like you said, reframing what 10 out of 10 looks like. 10 out of 10 might not, when you become a parent, might not be 5 workouts a week and 8 hours of sleep. 10 out of 10 might be, if I get 6 hours, that would be a great night. But if I got 4 hours because I was up in the night, that's fine. And it's a couple of workouts a week, not 5. And just kind of reframing what awesome, what 10 out of 10 looks like in different seasons of your life. And it's difficult because, as we were just saying before, it's new and new feels uncomfortable. You try and not go on your phone for a walk and you're used to going on your phone and listening to a podcast. It feels uncomfortable. You don't go on social media for a month. It feels uncomfortable. But you have to really embrace that change if you actually want to enjoy your life a little bit more.
Yeah, totally. And it will become a self-fulfilling prophecy if you just say, oh, I don't have time. But the next question should be, oh, I don't have time. Do I? How could I get time? What would have to change? How much time do I actually need? Because sometimes we say, oh, okay, I want to get fit. Oh, I don't have time. What does fit mean? So we need to define that, because fit for that person might be, oh, I just want to lose 50 pounds worth of weight, for example. Cool, well, you don't need the gym to do that, actually. You could eat less and walk a bit more and just be very conscious about your activity level. Do you have the time to do that? Oh, yes, I do. So everything has to be attached to the outcome. And this is why I think we have so much, there should be so much value placed in science, because we're able to say, okay, scientifically, what's shown to get this outcome? Well, we know that weight loss, for example, comes from a calorie deficit. There's multiple ways to do that. So how could my lack of time enable this goal to happen? Because in my head, it might be, right, I've got a weight loss goal. Oh my God, I need to go to the gym 4 days a week and I need to do X, because that's our current blueprint of what weight loss looks like. But scientifically, we just know that we need to create a calorie deficit. So now we're empowered with way more tools to say, cool, how could I achieve that goal with my knowledge base, my time, my desire, all of that kind of stuff. So I'm just a huge fan of questioning every story that we tell ourselves, because there's usually a different way to frame it, different way to approach it, and a different solution.
And that's the reason why I think it's such a struggle, though, because there is no one right answer. Because I think what most people want is to just know, if you just tell me what to do, I can just do it and I'll give it my all and then it'll be done. But there isn't one answer, is there?
Rarely.
Very rarely, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, it is empowering, and especially as coaches, we're like, it's amazing that there's not one answer. But when you're on the other end of that and you're trying to figure it out, it's overwhelming. So I guess having some core principles that you can rely on would be really helpful. What would you say they would be?
Well, I want to come back, if I may, just slightly, because if people are finding things overwhelming to make changes, I would say there's not enough space to create the change. So if someone is sitting there wanting to lose weight, feel better, improve their health, and they're like, oh, I have no idea how I'm going to achieve that goal, the first thing we need to do is create the space and time to be able to do it, so we're not overwhelmed and stressed by it. So this is why at the beginning we started with, oh, can there be an exercise where we say, let's remove all of this stuff that's unimportant for our lives to create space for what we're now saying is a really important goal. Because if you're going to try and get fit and healthy in 2 hours a week, you might not be able to do it, because you might have to start thinking more about your food order and planning your food, especially if you've got kids. You might have to make a proactive approach to go to the gym or walk more or whatever it is. So can we say no, maybe even short term, to doing that extra work or helping that friend or doing these things that aren't currently serving you, because otherwise you will get stressed and overwhelmed at it. And I know that you're like me, we want our clients to learn about this stuff. Because if they come to us and they're like, right, give me a diet, give me a fitness plan, I'll go and do it. I'm like, you need to learn what you're doing so that once we get to the goal, you know how to keep doing it. Because otherwise you'll just move to the next diet plan or maybe restart our one again. We don't want that. We want you to go on the journey, learn and be empowered with these things as life skills. Nutrition is a life skill. Learning how to be fit is a life skill. Learning how to optimize your sleep is a life skill. So create the space and time to invest in yourself by being able to educate yourself in these areas.
It's changing that expectation of what you're even embarking on, isn't it? It's not a diet. It's a educational journey.
Well, it's like it's nutrition for life, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
we're all on, like, a diet is just the foods that we habitually eat. So we
Yeah.
are all, quote unquote, on a diet till the day we die. Which is, diet gets wrapped up with a lot of people as weight loss, but it's like weight loss is it's like, well, what then? You know, what happens when you hit the weight loss goal? What after that? You're not on that, quote unquote, diet then, are you? So like, what then? You're just going to revert back to old habits and behaviors, put the weight back on, which is typically what happens in a lot of people. Versus it's a very different approach to go, hey, I'm just going to continually educate myself around food, and as a proxy, I will probably continue to lose weight through having more awareness and education, and then be able to sustain and maintain the results because I have the education and empowerment around my nutrition. But it's a very different, you know, I think we can maybe say that as coaches versus, I know, like, the thousands of messages that we get every week. It's, I just want to lose 20 pounds. You know, it's just like, it's just so focused on the outcome, but you do have to.
And a lot of the time it is, I want it now.
Yeah.
And actually, this is an interesting one. Obviously, Awesome Supplements does what it says on the tin. It's supplements. But do you get approached by people wanting, like, weight loss supplements?
No. And I think that's probably because our brand isn't set up in a way that we make bold claims or make big promises, or we're just not in that space. So no, like, that literally never happens.
Yeah. Because it's obviously a growing market at the moment, not supplements, but medications for weight loss. And it's scary how quickly it's grown, but it's because it gives that instant answer, doesn't it? Of, hey, here's your problem, here's the solution.
Yep.
I'll take £1,000, please.
Well, it's a pandemic-sized problem, and if you look at it from a government or NHS perspective, they're like, wow, we're trying to do these interventions, they're not working, people are not listening or can't do it or whatever. Now we need to move to a more medicated route. So we've now got Ozempic and other medications that are coming on the market, proven to be effective. So actually, we're all sitting here as trainers going, oh my God, we shouldn't be at this point. Like, people should be able to, lose weight. Well, this information's out there, but people aren't doing it. So when it comes to, like, for example, the NHS reducing the burden that is placed on them because of obesity and lifestyle-related conditions, they're looking at Ozempic going, this is a great solution because it's going to solve a huge financial and health crisis for the UK and many other countries. So I can see how we've got there. It's really unfortunate, but that's the reality.
Do you not think it's like possibly like a blind, short-sighted approach in the sense of, like, this may work, and like, cause again, I think with Ozempic it's a lifelong medication, or that's
we should probably call it
semaglutide.
Yeah,
which a medication
Ozempic's the diabetic kind of grade of that specific drug.
Okay.
But Wegovy is the weight loss brand.
Cool. Corrected.
Yeah. But again, like, people are taking this very much just like, oh, I want to lose 15, 20 pounds. Not even some people who are, like, obese and are putting strain on, like, the NHS or the health service. They just see it as like, oh, this is an easier route to take. But I feel like it just creates the same cycle of what diet culture has done to an extent, which is, I'm on a diet to lose weight, to lose the weight, to come off the diet, gain the weight back, go back on a diet. And instead now it's like, oh, I go on a medication, I'll lose the weight, to come off the medication and gain it back because I've not learned anything or empowered myself. I think that's one side of it. And then the other side is, as much as, like, I'm huge on, like, personal responsibility and taking ownership for where you're at, but I also, a huge part of it is a great book called Finfluence. And it basically just shows, like, if we've got, like, an obese parent, there's like we're 50% more likely to be obese. Si can maybe quote the stats on this for me. And if you've got, like, an obese friend or sibling, again, it's like 50, 60%. So, just even by the people that you surround yourself with and the environment that you live in plays a huge, like, statistical chance in the fact that you will be overweight or obese or not. And that's just, like, everyone's had that quote, like, we are the sum of the 5 people we spend the most time with. But then also the society that we live in, like Amazon Prime, takeouts, people not feeling like they have enough time. People don't cook from home anymore. Like, society is almost like people walk less. I've had days where I've done, like, 2,000 steps, and then, like, I make a point of that being, like, a very rare day nowadays.
Yeah.
But it can be done, and for a lot of people that's probably just, like, the norm. Like, you get up, you don't leave the house, you work from home, you order your food in at the end of the day, and it's just, you haven't really moved or done much. And it's society's going more that way, which is creating more of like an obesogenic society.
Well, that's why I think one of the most powerful ways to change is changing your environment. So as an example, when I was at school, I was obese at school because I was bullied, and I took comfort in basically sitting at the end of the table, because we used to sit in like tables of 12 in your like year group, and I used to sit at the end of the table and just like eat because I wasn't part of the conversation. I was bullied, like I just wasn't in the in crowd, and that's how I got fat at school. Essentially, I used to eat my happiness. Then I left school, and then I had no friends, had no influence, had a desire to get fit. It was like, where do you get fit? I joined a gym, and now I was surrounded by people that were doing this stuff every day, and it was inspirational. Lost 8 stone in 5.5 months. It changed my life, and I was like, wow. And then, like, even now as a business owner, I'm like, I'm trying to grow my business. Cool. What do I need to go and do? I probably need to go and spend time with people that have a business 2, 3, 4 times the size of me to understand what it's like, etc. So in the world of fitness, I always say to people, I do think it's important to go to a gym that is an inspirational space. Like if you walk into a gym, £12 a month, like it just feels like you're just a number in this place. Yeah, it's cost you £12 a month, but what if you went and joined a really cool group fitness studio? And I'll single out CrossFit. Like I think CrossFit made fitness kind of cool when it kind of came on the scene, because it's like, let's do mad things, let's throw bars, let's climb up ropes, and like people were getting fit quick.
Oh, they've nailed it from the community aspect as well. Yeah. So Steph, my girlfriend, every time we go somewhere new, she goes to CrossFit gym. I walk out, she's made 3 friends, talking about going for coffee afterwards, and they've all got this like, we're in this together vibe, and like where CrossFit is, and it's, I'll call her a CrossFit wanker still, but you know what I mean? Because you have to. But like from a community element of it, like we've been to several different places in the world, and it's like instantly can make friends from going to somewhere like that, which is a cool thing to do if you're traveling around a lot. But also, yeah, like the conversations that you're having as you're talking about training, you're talking about health, you're talking about diet, like it's a very different conversation when you change your environment, as you just said, and you spend time around these people who are often just curious and just want to help in a lot of ways.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like out of the loop with what it feels like to have a friend group that isn't supportive. Like if you've not got friends that are like want you to be the best version of yourself, it's very hard to change.
Yeah.
Because there's just not the support there. But surrounded, around me, and I've kind of created that over time, are people that are all like, let's win at life. Let's be healthy. Let's do things. Like people don't ring me up and go, do you want to go for a beer? People are like, do you want to go for a hike at the weekend? Do you want to go for a walk? Like, do you want to be outside? Like that's how we view sociality and being fit and healthy and sharing common interests. And that's why you've got to, sometimes make new friends, make bold moves. If you go to a gym and you don't like it, join a new gym, spend a bit more, find an inspirational trainer. And again, that's the power of a coach as well. Like a coach can kind of inspire that, give confidence in you to actually be like, you can do this. I want you to go and make this change. Please consider this behavior. And yeah, that's why you do what you do.
Yeah.
And then the knock-on effect of that is belief. So you do it once, and then you believe that you can do it. And then next time you see an opportunity, you're actually looking for the opportunity, and then you actually try it as well. Because you're like, oh, I've done that. Maybe I can take a next step in a career or something else, where normally it would be too uncomfortable. You wouldn't even look for the opportunity. That's like a big thing with luck, isn't it? People go, oh, you get so lucky, or you're so lucky. And it's like, luck in a lot of ways is just when preparation meets opportunity. You know what I mean? And most of the time when you're not in that place and not in that environment, that mindset, you're not even looking for the opportunities. So they do pass you where you could have been quote unquote lucky. You just weren't looking for them. So yeah, no, environment is huge. Would that be one of your sort of first go-tos then? Try and get yourself into a...
Now, but it'd be something that I would talk about with any individual or client. I'm like, talk to me about what's around you. And if people are like, oh, I go to an office and everyone's a drag in the office, and like I might even talk to them about changing their job, because I'm like, if you're not around people that are inspiring, lifting you up, like share common interests, like why are you doing it?
Yeah,
there are other jobs available. It's not a quick fix, but
yeah. Before we got this place to where we are now, an office, we went to look for another place, and we went up and it was like on the whatever floor. And we went in and it was just grey. And everyone was sat there in like suits that looked like they were like 10 years old and ties undone. And it just looked like, it looked dull and grey. And I literally just went, this is where dreams go to die. Like as soon as I walked through the door, the flipping owner of the business was stood behind me. I didn't even realise. I was there with Jim and I was just like, I meant it. You know what I mean? When you go somewhere like that, it just looked sad. And it's like, I've got no surprise if most of the people in that office, if not all of them, just did not feel great about themselves, and it does, your environment just rubs off on you so much.
It's actually not that surprising, but a lot of our clients end up changing their job as a byproduct of all the changes they're making and the realization of how much your environment affects your choices, the way you feel. Like, people leave their partners. Not that this is a desired outcome, but you do start to realize how much everything else influences you, your decisions, the way you feel. And then you start to be intentional and you say, well, do I want that? Actually, no. And you're brave enough to go for what you really want, which is scary, but super powerful, because you only get one life. So let's do what we actually want to do with it, right?
For some of us, it could be short. So let's fucking get on and live it.
Yeah.
Which is a nice segue into what you're actually doing now with your business, because you've had multiple different ventures over the years, but you've honed in on supplements. And you said it earlier, like it gives you that passion again about running a business. So supplements, you know, some people might hear it, and especially in the US where they're not as regulated, it can feel a bit like one of those things that's a bit of a snake oil type thing. However, I know that that is not your vibe. So how do you reconcile that with people's expectation of what a supplement is versus what you know it can do?
Yeah. Firstly, honesty and integrity. And I think that just comes from, for me, looking at the research. So everything in our business, for example, is 100% evidence-based and evidence-dosed. And a lot of companies will claim, oh, you know, we're research-based. It's like show me, like, you know, what evidence are you leaning on? And also the effect of that. Like, you know, someone can design a supplement and be like, oh, it has an effect. I'm like, that effect is so small, it doesn't even matter. It's like most weight loss supplements, thermogenics. They'll generally make you burn about an extra 25 to 50 calories a day at best. And that's mainly because of the caffeine content. So it's like, do you really want to spend £30 a month for something to make you move a little bit more, which is probably the same as a strong coffee? So while there might be evidence there, is it even relevant? So I think leaning heavily on the research is really important. You know, when we're kind of doing our due diligence around these things, I think we should always get like a bit of a value/vibe check. Like if you start reading on a company's website and they're making all these big claims, is like women in bikinis, and it's all just like sex sells, you know, outcome sells, muscles, and you're kind of like, does this company have my best interests at heart? Like, are they doing things in the right way? So I originally got into the supplement game because I was fed up with all the misinformation, and I was working with a supplement company that I fell out with because they were bringing out more and more products that weren't evidence-based, and I was their nutritionist, and they were asking me to like stand behind and put together the marketing materials and videos for these supplements. I'm like, I can't promote this supplement. Like, the evidence is like, you know, paper thin, if at all. So in kind of my naivety nearly 8 years ago, I was like, oh, how hard can it be to start a supplement company? And it just came from a place of like, surely this can be done with honesty and integrity and just leaning purely on the research and then making everything taste awesome and enjoyable to take. And that was the simple premise. That's it.
Simple.
Yeah, I think.
Hey, sorry to interrupt, but if you didn't already know, we help women over 30 lose 30 to 60 pounds in under 6 months without restrictive diets, countless hours exercising, or any guesswork. Now, we do that through our world-class one-on-one personalized coaching. And if you qualify, we actually guarantee that you'll see results. And yes, we are that good. Now, if you'd like to find out more, you can click the link in the show notes or go over to bodysmartfitness.com.
Let's have a little quick fire round then, because there's a lot of supplements that get banded around, and particularly if people have been following certain influencers online that promote, like you were saying, like promote this certain supplement which maybe hasn't got that much research behind it. So can we just do a quick like overrated, underrated? Okay. Creatine?
Underrated, very good.
Yeah.
Collagen?
For longevity and skin elasticity, underrated.
Multivitamins?
Underrated, and I would say especially based on deficiency data from most countries, and some new research has come out that's shown that multivitamin will serve your long-term health very positively.
Omega-3s?
Very underrated. Maybe one of the number
Big
one
trend,
supplements people should take.
Turmeric?
Overrated, because what we actually want is curcuminoids, not turmeric. So if you take a turmeric tablet, the chances are you're getting nowhere near the active dose of curcumin to have the benefit of reducing joint pain. And there's some other stuff, other research coming out now around PCOS in females and depression as well. So turmeric, overrated. Curcumin, underrated.
Do you have to take it with black pepper, or is that
Yes.
you do?
You do, definitely.
It sounded like
Increases
a spice
absorption
blend.
by like 3,000, like it's, ridiculous
Is it
how
meant
much
to
it
be, is
helps
it
it.
also possibly good for people who struggle with dementia or Alzheimer's? I don't know if this is 100% true. I think Steph, when she was doing one of her papers to become a pharmacist, they looked at, I think, India, and they have like the lowest rates of dementia and Alzheimer's in the world. And it's because they have like high doses of turmeric, I think, in the food. I'm not 100% sure, maybe.
The thing is, within countries like that, they're having like a lot, and companies are putting a little bit in a capsule and being like, oh, like take this. There's nowhere near the research level doses. A lot of, when we look at these studies as well, there's so many other variables at play. Like, when you look at a lot of other like Eastern cultures, they're way more socially active. They get outside more. They're way more manual. There's like so many, confounding variables.
And to come back to what you said earlier, particularly in India, more of that spiritual connection as well.
Yeah, live a lot slower pace of life.
Yeah.
A lot of Eastern countries have got it really figured out. Us in the Western world are all running around on treadmills, glued to their phones. And it's not to say that, places don't, but yeah.
Yeah. I did have a couple more.
Yes.
Electrolytes.
Underrated.
Oh, pre-workout.
Probably overrated for most on the hierarchy of supplements.
And magnesium.
I'd say in the middle. I think magnesium's had a lot of light shone on it for quite a long time. It's going to have a bit more of a resurgence, but that's one of the major deficiencies that you'll see, especially in active people.
Okay.
Most active people, I would argue, do not get enough magnesium.
So there's a lot. That was a long list of things, and a lot of them were underrated, which kind of leads us to think, oh shit, should we all be taking like all of these things?
Relevancy is important in supplementation. So if I was to talk to a client and they would say to me, look, what's the basic supplements that I should take? And I'd say, to be honest, I'd probably take a very high quality multivitamin and an omega-3 and maybe leave it at that. Do you have the money or the inclination to explore spending a bit more? Do you have the goals that would maybe warrant more? And then that person goes, well, actually, I'm strength training 3 times a week. And I'm like, well, would you like to maximize the amount of strength and muscle mass that you could build in the gym? Yes. Okay. Creatine's probably a really safe supplement to take for you. Really low cost, really easy to fit into your lifestyle. I'd probably recommend that. And then I might say, well, how's your protein in your diet? Do you think you're getting enough protein? Because actually the research around having an optimal amount of protein in the diet is hugely positive, great for muscle mass retention, satiety, many other things. That person might say no. And then you might go, well, a protein powder could really help you meet daily sufficiency. We're not trying to replace food. It is a supplement to help you achieve protein sufficiency in the diet, especially with people that have more specialist diets, vegan, vegetarian, plant-based. There's lots of different diets. And then there's other more specialist things that then are very much goal dependent. So, okay, I train a lot. Okay, cool. Well, when you train, you sweat. And if you only drink tap water when you train, you're probably losing electrolytes rather than putting electrolytes that you lose back in. So actually taking an electrolyte supplement, which is very cheap, very cost effective, would probably be very beneficial to support your training. And then there's other more specific goals like I'm a CrossFitter. Cool. Well, in CrossFit, beta-alanine and creatine together would actually probably be really helpful in your CrossFit performance because you have a high demand of strength endurance. So that would help buffer lactic acid and help you push harder. So anyone doing CrossFit, team sports, high rocks, beta-alanine and creatine together would be hugely beneficial. Someone might be doing like bodybuilding. It's like, cool, well, do you want to really push that training? Cool. Well, then you might kind of take a pre-workout. Someone might really enjoy the pump effect of how they kind of like feel and perform. Again, that's an argument to take a pre-workout. If you don't want that, then kind of don't take it. So there's that baseline where for most people that I talk to, high quality multivitamin, omega-3, electrolytes and a protein powder I feel like that kind of core bundle.
Yeah.
And then everything on top is based on goals and inclination to spend a
Yeah.
little bit more money.
I have one. So normally I have 3 that I would recommend as like a general, which would be same as yourself, a good quality multivitamin, omega-3s. And then if you are in the UK or certain parts of the Western world where you don't get much sunlight, maybe a low dose at least of vitamin D. I know you will get some of that in a multivitamin sometimes, but just, especially in the UK. Like,
Totally. So my caveat would be I would want the really good quality multivitamin to have that dose of vitamin D in it.
Right.
If it doesn't, then put that on top.
Yeah.
So the major deficiencies in the UK right now are vitamin D, magnesium, zinc, folic acid, and B12.
How about iron?
Iron is like actually like a lot lower on that list, but it's pretty close. And in specialist diets, iron is quite often the number 1 deficiency. So I'm talking about normal omnivorous population.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you get a high quality multivitamin, that should cover all of it.
Right.
So like, for example, ZMA, very popular supplement, magnesium and zinc. But if you get a good quality multivitamin like ours, then you would get that in it and you wouldn't need multiple supplements. But
Is
yeah,
there a danger of overdosing on any of those things?
pretty rare. Like, for example, for vitamin D, you've got to be taking over 100,000 roughly IUs a day for a long period of time to reach vitamin D toxicity. So it's pretty unlikely.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you'd kind of know about it. It would start to get reported in the media and stuff, but unlikely. Like magnesium, if you take too much magnesium, it can have a bit of a laxative effect. But you'd notice that because you'd start to have a watery shit. So
Yeah. You see it coming.
So if anybody was deficient in any of those key things that are in the multivitamin or that you listed as the high common deficiencies, would they even know?
maybe this is challenging. So, for example, if someone had poor energy, there's quite a few vitamins that would contribute to having you poor energy. If you've got joint pain, there's maybe a couple of things that might be insufficient. Then there's other factors like food intolerances creating inflammation and stuff. So there's a couple of ways I can approach it. You could go to a healthcare practitioner and try and get very specific about the problem, and they might say, okay, cool, well, that specific problem could be these 3 nutrients, and we might try and supplement with like a single nutrient for a month, see if that has an effect, try a different single nutrient. Or you could go away and get your blood tested and see how your micronutrient status is from your blood. That can be a very efficient way. Or you can look at the data and say, okay, the data generally says that these deficiencies exist, and I'm going to just cover all my bases and take a high quality multivitamin and kind of just make sure that none of that kind of happens, because can't really be bothered to go and get my blood tested, and that specific thing sounds like quite long-winded and stuff. But they're kind of the 3 approaches I would say that you could take to start to identify things. If you did like data, you could use an app like what's it called? It's a calorie counting app, and it counts your micronutrient status as well. So you could
NutriCheck.
that might do it as well.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
another one that I'm thinking of, but I think that does it as well.
Yeah.
But that way you could maybe put your diet into that app for a month, and it says, oh, based on what you eat, you're actually getting a really low amount of X, Y, and Z. And then you could maybe supplement and kind of build on top of it.
Because that's one thing that I was going to ask. If somebody is really paying attention to their diet, eating 80% whole foods, aiming for a protein goal, is it likely that they're going to be deficient in some stuff as well? Or would they probably cover it with a balanced diet?
I think that's tough nowadays. 'Cause
It's a really tough question to answer. There's a lot going on within that. So I think food quality is severely reduced, and the data would indicate that in some foods and the way that we farm them and manufacture them, there is a definite reduction in quality. You've then got how much we actually eat of it. So, if we have like a portion of carrots compared to what we might have eaten, maybe we're not getting enough. We think we're having a good portions of vegetables, but actually it's quite kind of a low amount. There's the stresses that our bodies are under. So if you exercise, the chances are you are going to be lower in magnesium, as an example, because it's used in the ATP energy cycle, and that means you use a lot of it. And then there's like a lack of sleep can cause more kind of like nutrient losses. And then there's dietary things. So there's certain things, like if you eat a lot of acidic foods, it can leach more magnesium from the bone to help buffer the acidity. So it's quite a big picture. and not easy to just sort of give one answer. That's why testing can be important. That's why just playing around can be important. But that's also why just looking at the mean data can be important and go, okay, cool. Well, I can spend £20 a month, get that supplement, and kind of probably going to cover my bases. And that's usually the approach I take with most clients or people I'm talking to, because that's generally their inclination of the amount of research that they want to do and the level of effort that they want to put into the solution.
Yeah, and that was something else that I wanted to ask about, because it does just seem, particularly in the US, like a bit of a Wild West situation. It does feel like unless you have the time, the background knowledge, the inclination to go and do your own quite intense research, like it's a big subject to try and tackle when that's not your thing.
Yeah, I do think finding good sources of information can hugely leapfrog that. So, for example, many might know of a website called examine.com. I think they've done a very good job at simplifying the research, so we can go onto it and type in creatine and it will bring up the data in quite a friendly way to kind of break it down and ask the question whether we want to take it or not. I think there's some pretty good people to follow online and social media that break this down, very simply.
Who would you recommend?
Probably one of my number one nutritional researcher people, big fan of Lane Norton and how he approaches nutritional science, both from a supplement and a kind of more broader nutrition perspective. Like him,
And you?
And me, maybe.
So generally then, even if someone's eating well, you would say, as almost like an insurance policy, like just take the multivitamins, take the omega-3s. It's not going to do you any harm.
Well, for most of it, isn't it? If you have a little bit more, you just weigh it out. You just pass it out, right?
So, yes, true. I think the conversation here is not just about sufficiency, which is how most people view nutrition. It's like, I personally want to move towards optimal. So what's optimal? So we can take a little bit of omega-3, might help us not get deficient and have a problem, but what's optimal? The research says that optimal is 2 grams a day. And if you're taking 2 grams a day, it will reduce all-cause mortality by about 40%.
What?
That's huge. That's good. So why would you not kind of take an omega-3? The next question is, can't I eat like a bit more fish, like a bit more walnuts, etc.? Walnuts, flax, that kind of stuff, like no. The conversion of ALA into the omega-3 that we want is around 5%. So it's a really poor source of omega-3. We do want to be eating like oily fish or supplementing kind of directly. And that's why probably every vegan, vegetarian, specialist diet is going to have to take an omega-3 supplement, because they're not going to get it through their diet alone. Just because the research shows like you have a lot better life expectancy if you have this compound in your diet.
Mm-hmm. And are there any that are like massively overrated or even dangerous?
I think a big overrated supplement at the moment is adaptogens.
Oh yeah.
Ashwagandha, rhodiola rosea, a lot of the mushrooms, cordyceps, etc. They're becoming very popular. My issue with them is not that they don't have an effect, is that really the macro effect of the solution that we want is to change our behavior. If we're too stressed, if we're too overwhelmed, we're not adapting to stress, the pill might give you 5% benefit, but if you're constantly just doing too much, that pill's not going to expand your body's capacity that much to handle that stress. So yes, there is some positive data in some things like ashwagandha, but I would much rather see behavior change.
Yeah, so it's like a sticking plaster.
Yeah.
Okay. And I want us to talk a bit more about collagen, because it's definitely something that our audience will have had advertised at them, read articles about. And it's definitely something that we would say to people generally, just focus on getting your protein level up to start with, because if you're starting at the point where you haven't even been looking at your nutrition, but there does seem to be more and more evidence coming through that actually collagen itself as a supplement does have a good place in a diet.
So caveat, I don't know tons about collagen. What I do know from my research so far is the two major benefits, or the first major benefit does seem to be in skin elasticity. So a lot of, especially females that are aging, will want to try and preserve the quality of kind of the skin, its fullness, its plumpness, reduce wrinkle lines, etc. It seems to have beneficial effect there. And that's in a marine-based or animal-based collagen.
Okay.
There's a lot of these vegan kind of collagens coming onto the market. They are not as effective. They are usually amino acid-based blends, trying to kind of mimic the effects, and they don't mimic the effects well. So choose a marine animal-based form of collagen. The second effect seems to be in kind of joint integrity as you age. So if you do have issues there, collagen might be an option. But the number one joint-based supplement seems to be curcumin. But if you wanted to attack it from multiple angles for joint health, you would want collagen, curcumin, and omega-3 as like a trifecta of good research-based supplements.
Because your body does make collagen.
Yeah.
So if you have a sufficient balanced protein intake, is it necessary to supplement?
Well, that's the thing. Like, we could sit here and argue, what are we sort of designed to eat? You know, what would we have eaten 100, 200, 1,000 years ago? I'd probably argue it would look pretty Paleolithic, like a range of animals like deer, rabbit, you know, cows, things that were easy to catch. And then like berries, you know, things that grew under the ground, survived harsh winters, seasonal vegetables. Yes, we would have made bread properly, that kind of stuff. That probably would have been our diet. We would have got a lot of collagen because we would have boiled the bones. We would have used like all of the animal, all that kind of stuff. So argument is, now are we getting enough? No, because we don't eat a diet that has enough of those ingredients naturally in the way that we eat. Because, you know, quite often people that are maybe having a healthy diet, we've got like chicken breasts and the vegetables. We're not getting these other kind of like connective tissue elements of the animal. Like the research on bone broth is good, is phenomenal. Like, but most people don't like that kind of stuff.
Well, there's a lot of the vitamins and nutrients in general in animals are in the organs as well, aren't they? And that's the whole part of like you would eat an animal nose to tail and use the whole animal. And that was, you know, even my grandma, like when we used to she'd get a chicken, she'd use the whole chicken and even make a broth off, you know, make a soup out of the the carcass at the end. You know, it was a traditional thing that you would be doing that versus, I think we've become very distant from our food nowadays in terms of how we eat it and just go to the supermarket and get a nice piece of meat off the...
all packaged nicely, cut up neatly, nothing on it anymore,
But what's interesting is if you have like a really homemade stew made with like all the connective tissue, like those cheaper cuts of meat, which are not like easy to cook quickly, it's so good. Our bodies obviously register, this is something that I should be having more, because it is seen as comfort food, isn't it? It's that kind of food where your grandma makes it and you have a big bowl of it and it properly satisfies you. So, well, maybe this is the call to go back to stews. Slow cooking.
Maybe.
Or
get good stew.
I love.
I know what you mean.
A lamb
though. Like,
stew.
Yeah, you almost put it in your mouth and you're like, there's something deeply nourishing about this meal. Like, yeah, totally.
Yeah, especially like a lamb. Like, yeah. I couldn't be a vegetarian.
Getting hungry.
So we're talking about protein. I did want to ask you about Awesome Protein.
Yeah.
Because you have you have moved away from whey, which I found really interesting, because that's always been kind of pitched as the gold standard of most absorbable, most easily synthesized. So
which it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's driven your move to vegan protein?
Well, we had whey protein as part of the range for a long time. We stopped selling it in November 2021. The primary reason was actually because of Brexit and supply chain and like really boring business reasons. And our vegan protein sold compared to our whey protein about 10 to 1. So we were selling a lot.
Wow.
And that's because our vegan protein was best in the market. It's won 5 awards. It tastes incredible. So at that point we were like, oh, should we just go all in on the plant protein? We were just having a lot of problems. And we have extremely high standards of all our products. And if I can't make it taste incredible, I will not bring it to market. And our whey protein tasted amazing. And I kept taste testing all the UK manufacturers and they weren't that good. At the time, we got our whey protein from Belgium. And I was like, cool, well, we're not going to do it. We're actually exploring bringing whey protein back. But we want to do it with an organic way. And we want to do it kind of in our own way, in a very kind of premium blend. So I've got nothing against whey protein. It was just something we'd had nailed as a business. We're very proud about. It's very versatile. Like you can even make it into like a hot chocolate. Like it's incredible. So yeah, it's quite a boring reason why we didn't do it.
Yeah.
And then it kind of
Yeah.
Well, I
stuck.
suppose
And then
then to take it a little bit further is there was a lot of noise when vegan protein powders first came out that they aren't as good and the amino acid profiles aren't quite there. So do you feel like that has now been addressed with the way you formulate the blend, or?
yeah, so traditionally a vegan protein was like a singular protein source of pea or rice or hemp, and there's other things like yellow pea and stuff. And you basically need to blend two together to get an ideal ratio. So we blend organic pea with rice, and that gives it a complete amino acid profile.
So it's not soy.
No. So the thing that people focus on is usually the leucine content. Leucine's very high in whey protein. So you need a significant amount less whey protein to get an optimal amount of leucine compared to a vegan protein. So really the solution is just to have like 10 or 15% more of a scoop of a vegan protein compared to whey, if that's like your proclivity. So it's not really like a big issue. It's just a small minor kind of thing. But there's a lot of people out there that do not tolerate whey protein very well. Like I speak to a lot of people that just feel a bit like bloated by it, a bit sluggish. So, yeah.
This guy, our man over here, Si, that's you, isn't it?
Yeah, I struggle with whey. Vegan protein just doesn't have that impact. Like I feel head like foggy and tired. Do you get the digestive thing, but it's more just like this fog. It's hard to describe.
Yeah, I'm the same. Yeah. I don't really have cow's dairy, so yeah.
Why is that? Like what? Because I've had it as well. It's like about an hour afterwards. It's weird. If I have it straight after a workout, I feel okay. But if I ever have it in the day, I feel like more of that just lethargicness after having it.
I would maybe argue that when you've worked out, your endorphins and your energy is so high, you feel so great from the workout that you don't feel it as much because you don't have that in kind of like a rested state.
Yeah.
That's why it feels more present. There's just a large amount of people that don't react well with dairy. I think that's the reality of it. It's like there's a large amount of people that don't react well with gluten and wheat, with nightshades and other, families of foods. And I think dairy is one of them. Unfortunately, it's just in a lot of people's diet. A lot of people consume dairy. And I'm not sitting here saying dairy's bad. It just can be not great for a good percentage of people. And I'm one of them. Like, I don't feel great on it. It gives me like mental head fog. It makes my hay fever 10 times worse in the summer if I have dairy, like really, really bad. And I just feel like, I can only describe it as I feel inflamed. Like I just feel like my body is like, my joints hurt a bit more. Yeah, I just feel inflamed. So I don't have it.
Interesting. Wow, I look forward to trying it because
We'll send you some.
Thank you. I've had not great experiences with vegan protein powder. I've never found one that tastes good. And when I first started trying it, I was literally on like Pulsing pure rice protein, which was boke.
Lumpy and
Yeah, I've had the only vegan protein I've had as well. I came in, I think I just gave it to the guys in the office because it was just like so thick and clumpy, and it felt like you could just taste it was vegan. Yeah, bitty. Yeah. So yeah, look forward to
really excited now.
let us know.
Yeah, definitely.
So obviously you just said though that whey technically still is the better amino profile as a standalone, and it is absorbed well. And it is something that we would say to people like you did earlier. You don't really want to replace food with it, but it is something that you could incorporate to help you get to that baseline. I think there's still a little bit of fear out there, specifically in female populations, of what if I take protein powder, am I going to get bulky? Am I going to put on weight? What would you say to that?
I think we should define bulky. So if I was speaking to someone and they said, I'm going to get bulky, I'd like, okay, tell me what that means. Okay, well, I don't want to grow muscle too quickly. Well, taking protein doesn't just make muscle. You have to train really quite hard actually to build muscle. No one builds muscle really quickly. So if you woke up in the mirror one day and went, oh my God, I look bulky, that didn't just happen like just from the workout that you just did. You might feel a little bit bigger because when we exercise, we have an increase in muscular volume. And that's one of the benefits of weight training, probably more so for a guy, is that we look fuller and more muscular because we draw in nutrients and water and glycogen into our muscle tissue. So I think first thing we've got to challenge that belief of what bulky is. Secondly, protein is so important for aging and maintenance of muscle mass. And I think we need to start to celebrate muscle mass in women. Like, it is a good thing. Do not be scared of it. What you need to pair it with is probably a leaner physique. Because if you have a high amount of muscle mass and a high amount of fat mass, you will probably look bulky. And I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing. Everyone's in control of how they want their body to look and feel. But if we reduce our body fat, you're going to be able to tell changes in your body very quickly, and they're going to be pretty minor. I mean, I'm a 37-year-old guy and try and build muscle every week, and it's not happening.
Yeah.
Like, it's not an easy process. So taking a protein, because the reality is we should be able to say the same for chicken. Or if I
True.
eat more chicken, will I get bulky? Why does that get attributed to a protein powder? It's because the fitness industry has told us or programmed us that you go to the gym, you do a workout, and you take a protein shake to build muscle. Well, a protein shake is just it's like a blended chicken breast.
It's condensed food. Yeah, that's all.
It's a processed form of food.
Yeah. I don't even really see protein powder as like a supplement per se. I just see it as condensed food. It's just an easier way, a more convenient way of getting more food in your diet at times, especially protein if it's a more difficult macronutrient for some people to get.
So slight tangent, but protein for kids. This is a bit of a tangent.
Ooh.
Yeah, because I'm very much focused on like, right, I need to get enough protein in my diet. I need to get like these nutrients in my diet. This is what my plate should look like. Having a toddler, I was trying to feed him like I feed myself. Turns out I was wrong.
Nope. Yeah.
So, but there's no information out there. There's no like reliable source that you can go and say, how many grams of protein should my 2-year-old eat?
Yeah.
Do you know?
Last time I checked, I think it's really small. It's like 25 to 35 grams a day. It's not loads. Please don't like Uber quote me. I think the issue with like protein in kids, I think we do need to focus on it. Kids their taste buds change like all the time, but more it's their mood. I find,
yes.
with 2 young kids, they'll just look at it and go, no, I'm not eating that. And
Or
you're
if they're
like,
tired.
great. Yeah, tired, grumpy, you've left it too long. Like, there's so many moving variables. So people will ask me, and I think this is the question you were kind of moving towards, is it safe to give protein powder to young children?
Not necessarily, but that's a good question.
It is a good question. I would personally say yes, because again, like you just pointed out, protein powder is just another source of protein. There's nothing in it that's bad for human consumption. So if you're really struggling to get your child to have protein, like, is there any harm in putting literally 6 or 7 grams of a pea and rice blend or a whey protein, maybe unflavoured, into their morning porridge, for example? Like, no.
I mean,
Like,
is it that different than the milk powders that if
Exactly.
people don't breastfeed?
Exactly. There's
Actually,
basically
that's a
whey
great point.
protein.
It is, isn't it? Like,
If you use formula.
if you use formula, like, surely that's just trying to get as many nutrients and
Yeah.
vitamins and minerals and protein and calcium and everything else in there for the child.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not
Yeah.
too dissimilar.
So one caveat I would say is your product is obviously very rigorously tested and safe. In the US, I think there's still quite a lot of cowboy operations.
Yeah.
So there might need to be a little bit more care taken there in selecting.
I've definitely got a question for you that, because I know quite a few people who take supplements and they've gone and done tests on supplements and say Walmart, and they'll say 25 grams per scoop, but then it's like the bioavailable amount of protein from it is like 11. That's like how you advertising 25, but you actually are getting 11 from it. Is the truth in that? Can that happen in unregulated supplements?
So the usual method is something called amino spiking. So they'll put amino acids in it to have a protein content registered on a nutritional analysis. But when it comes to the actual kind of almost ingredient, there isn't a broad spectrum full protein profile in it. So that's usually how they get around it. And that's kind of like a filling effect. It happens in America. It doesn't happen in the UK. Like, I've not really noticed many companies do it. And it's usually the bigger companies, they're trying to really save costs, like drive the growth of their businesses, and they'll cut margins around, cut corners into what they're putting in their products. So there is some truth to that. Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What did you find this say?
Oh, so around 1 gram per kilogram for children of protein. And what research is this? Where's it from? US. The thing that I always find with stuff like this, though, is, you know,
that
like...
seems really similar to adult research. So 0.85 is basically what the Eat Well plate recommends. We
Which
have
is still low,
0.5.
isn't it?
Well, it is low based on new data that's come out. So Rhonda Patrick did a great breakdown of this. She's a really good person to follow online, Rhonda Patrick, around anything nutritional. But she said basically the information that we've been following for a long time is because the methods of testing have just not been as accurate as some of the tools and techniques that we have now. And she said that most people, or this research is saying that most people should be eating 1.2 grams of protein per day as a minimum
Per kilo.
per kilo body weight. So what that research is basically saying is we think it's here, but it's probably more likely here. So if you've got a child that's, 25 kilos, that's 25 grams of protein a day, or more, and is scaling up.
Which is not far away from what we would recommend for an adult.
No.
So, but it just happens that the child is smaller, so it sounds a lot more achievable.
Yeah. And I think one of the benefits we might see if we did this in kids, and I have a big thing around healthy fats in kids, because I see a lot of kids, they have a very high carb, very high sugar, moderately processed diet. And I know processed is a very broad term that we probably want to give some context and nuance to. If we had more protein and healthy fat in their diet, they'd get less bouts of hunger, they'd get less hungry more frequently, because they're actually eating a diet like us that controls their blood sugar better for a longer period of time. Because otherwise they're just on carby snacks all day and they're just eating.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying young kids need to eat regularly because their stomachs are small, they lose interest very quickly, all of that still exists, but we still need to approach their nutrition like ours. And healthy fat for the developing brain for me is very important. Like the omega-3 research in young kids, again, is phenomenal. Like you want to be getting omega-3 into your young kids.
So do your kids take supplements?
Yes. So I give them an omega oil and I hide it in like a multivitamin that's in like a blended fruit puree. So it's like, for them, it's like a fruity sort of smoothie that they take that has the omega oil in it. I personally, from a behavioural point of view, would prefer that over a gummy. I personally don't like the association of you're taking this gummy and it's healthy, but those other gummies that you have are not healthy, they're full of sugar. I don't think that's a healthy association in a young person. I think that makes sweets like harder to navigate because my kids don't have a lot in their diet. So yeah, that's kind of my approach, and I get both those supplements off Amazon.
So do they have a smoothie effectively every day then?
No, I just put it in almost like a little shot glass, and I'm like, all right, time to take your vitamins, fruity, and they just like they
knock
neck
it back like a shot.
They love it, yeah. But we do make smoothies for them, like again, because me and my wife do it quite a bit. We make our own smoothies, and they're like, oh, Daddy, can I have some of your smoothie, and we'll put it in a little pot with a straw in it.
Yeah,
and they love it.
Yeah.
Well, my son thinks that smoothies are ice cream. That's what he thinks ice cream is, because I just make it with frozen fruit, and then I'm like, "Do you want ice cream?" He's like, "Yeah."
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, okay, I could just put it in there.
Yeah.
Good to know. And in terms of general kids nutrition, there's not like an easily accessible body of information. Like there is, if you were to be an adult that wanted to lose weight or wanted to find out how to eat well, you could go online and within 10 minutes you could know everything you need to know. I can't seem to find that.
I don't know if it's that's not quite the case, is it? Because there's that much information. It's information overload. It's misinformation. And it's like, who do you listen to? Like that's a huge.
Well, who do you
problem.
listen to? Yeah,
that's a huge problem online, isn't it? You can go like, oh, the best way to lose weight, and it's like, well, you drink this tea and you do this, or you do keto, or you do.
If you go
fasting.
to the at Body Smart Fitness Instagram, then you could know in 10 minutes.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
So the challenge is we can't do testing on kids easily. It's the same with, there's a big lack of information in people that are pregnant.
Yeah.
Because it's not good to test on pregnant women, or it's unsafe, or there's lots of contraindications. So I think the best thing we can do as parents is be like, right, what do we know is optimal for the human, any human to eat? Let's extrapolate that down into what is toddler portion, so to speak. Because what we eat to thrive is going to be what they eat to thrive. Lots of really high quality proteins, healthy fats, fruits and vegetables. It's going to probably be the same.
Yeah.
There's not baby food. There's human food.
It's just in terms of ratios and amounts. I know obviously some people have really picky kids. It's tough to navigate. Like I'm lucky Nate is an eater. He takes after me. So he will eat anything, and he eats a lot. So I don't really worry about it too much. But I just feel like I'm somebody who can look
For
at...
now. That will change when he hits 3 and 4.
Brilliant. But I feel like as somebody who's got a background in nutrition, and I can look at an article and take it with a pinch of salt, or decide, yeah, I'm going to listen to that, I still find it tricky to navigate. Whereas if I'm just your average person who doesn't have that background, it does feel like a big responsibility that I don't have the tools to do the right job with. I don't know if you have an answer to that, Ben.
I feel like it's the same. It's just not that different than what we need to eat.
Yeah.
That would be my approach. I'd be like, what I'm eating makes me healthy, and my blood work says I'm healthy, and my kids eating smaller portions of that. Unless there's like something that I don't know. So I'm not going to say I do know.
Yeah, it's tough because when you become a parent, you initially start like a bit anxious because you're like, oh, I want to do the best thing by the child. And then you start reading around online, you listen to other parents, you start to listen to grandparents. And there's almost like a lot of baby things that you do, like, oh, a baby needs this. And there's like products aimed towards that. So you end up productizing some of the early development of kids because people have fed into that kind of need for parents to feed their kids potentially a certain way. Whereas if we just get right back to basics, like I have a small human, okay, early years needs milk. And then after that, they need to be weaned onto food. Okay, we make it soft. And then really, they just need to gravitate towards what you or me would eat. And we need to try and make it as diverse as possible, palatable in a way without making it extremely palatable. And I think that could be a very dangerous place to get into quite quickly. Parents are like, oh, I really want to get my kids to eat. So they might start making everything sweet, for example.
Yeah.
Like I remember someone, first time a grandparent made porridge for my kids, and they just like poured honey all over it. And I wanted to make sure they ate it. And I was like, you're now teaching them that is the standard for what porridge needs to taste like for almost like them to eat it. So I think keeping a diet as natural as possible is very, very important. That doesn't mean I don't try and make things tasty, but I try and do it in a natural way. It's like, it's the same in humans. As soon as you raise the palatability bar, you don't like dropping underneath it. It's like if you have like quavers or skips as a crisp, quite palatable, really strong flavour, and I handed you some ready salted Walkers, you're going to be like, bro, what? Like, where's the flavour in that?
Yeah.
Because your bar is so high, and I've found that it gets very high very quickly with kids because they then demand it. They're like,
Yeah.
I want X food. Like I had that X food the other day. So yeah, we've been very careful to introduce palatable foods very slowly, and there's a real big communication piece with our kids of like why we might be having it. Like we've gone to a kids party, or it's the weekend and we're having a special family meal, but it's not a general day-to-day thing in the house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's really good advice, and it's definitely something that we try and follow. So Nate pretty much just eats we just all eat the same thing. It sounds really bad to say he eats our leftovers, but that is what happens. So that's fine, but it is harder as they're starting. He goes to nursery and gets given bits and pieces, and they make homemade cakes. I'm like, that's fine. Like you can have cake every now and then, but then there is that like sweetness creeping in over time. So it's just something to be aware of, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah.
A big one that I want to ask you, since your area of remit is supplements now. What is like, because we try and ask everyone on this podcast, like what's one thing that you would really want to cut the BS on when it comes to supplements? Like a really common thing out there that people have a belief around.
Oh, I get asked this a lot, and I don't have a thing. I mean, there's an awful lot. I think the way supplements are really positioned in terms of like their value, the way you positioned it earlier with like underrated and overrated, I think is really good, because I think there's some things that are just way overrated, and actually when we get back to basics, we want to be looking after our health first. So let's get our micronutrient status really nailed in, and then let's aid our macronutrient status, and that's where
Could you even just explain micronutrients and macronutrients?
Yeah, so micronutrients, vitamins and minerals, macronutrients, carbs, proteins, fats, and alcohol you could probably include in that as well. So we want to cover those kind of bases, and then anything else is kind of like goal specific or symptom specific on top. So change in the narrative. Yeah, I don't know. Just the value that people place on it compared to probably lifestyle related behaviors. Like I'll meet people at events and they'll come up to me and they're like, oh, should I take this to achieve X? I'm like, yeah, kinda, but let's have a chat. Like, let me talk you through like lifestyle or the rest of it. And I feel that's my duty as a coach, to talk broadly kind of around a problem. So yeah, probably just the value some people place in some things.
I think that says a lot about yourself in terms of honesty and integrity. The fact that we've just asked you about supplements and you've just basically said,
It depends.
it depends, yeah, instead of just, because like that would normally typically be the case. And that is what you see with the market around supplements, is that take this whey protein and you will build muscle, take this pre-workout and you will get jacked, take these fat burners and you will strip all this fat off. And that is like the marketing that's being hammered down people's throats. It was, I don't know if you've ever seen it. It was like Bigger, Stronger, Faster with like Mark Bell, is it?
Yeah, I remember.
It's like an old documentary, and there's like a guy on it, and he's like getting filmed for it, and he's like flexing and saying, "Hey, you got to take this protein powder. You'll look like me." And then the guy behind the scenes is like, "Oh yeah, you want steroids?" And he's like, "Yeah." He goes, "Am I not meant to say that?" You know what I mean? It's just like, and it's just like that. There's a lot of that in the supplement industry, and it's a real shame. It is a real shame. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, having a brand that everyone can know that's what you stand for is a big plus, because it does feel like, particularly in the weight loss health industry, if you want to call it that, there does seem to be a lot of charlatans around and a lot of products that are not what they say they are. So,
Yeah, well, a lot of people have a lot of deep desires and fears, and supplements can fit really nicely into that. Oh, like you've got pain, cool, here's a pain supplement, and unfortunately that will always be the case. But I think if we can keep fighting the good fight and putting good information out there, then hopefully over time on the macro we win.
Yeah, that's the goal, isn't
Fingers
it?
crossed.
That is the goal. Yeah. Yeah, I do. I'm an optimist around that, even though sometimes I am conscious that you probably live in a bubble because you are in the industry, and maybe that isn't the case. But I just feel like even if that isn't the case, it doesn't mean that you still shouldn't just like hammer home like a positive message and evidence-based nutrition, supplements, and everything else that it comes with, because that is like the right thing to do is always the right thing to do in that sort of sense. Yeah.
So if anyone does want to find out about Awesome Subs, where do they go?
Yeah, go to awesomesupplements.co.uk. If they want to try us out, amazing. They can have code BEN10, BEN10, if they want to get 10% off and try it. And if you've got a question, we're on social media. Our social media is manned by a trained nutritionist, personal trainer and strength coach. So you'll get qualified, good advice. You're not just getting a social media intern that's like, and like trying to quote and misquote research and stuff. So yeah, that's where they can.
That's
find
awesome.
it.
And if they want to follow you personally?
I am Ben Coomber on the platforms.
No underscores,
COOMBER.
dots.
No underscores, no things, no, just Ben Coomber. Yeah.
And any of our listeners in the US and Canada, do you ship there?
We do. It costs a bit more, and we quite often will quote the shipping and then ship it out.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very much so. Yeah, thanks for coming on, Ben.
Thanks for
Thank
coming
you.
down.
It's been awesome.